Greetings and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting for Monday, April 24th, 2023. Call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Let the record reflect that all councilors are present. And with that, I'd like to invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the States of America, which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 4 under general. There's no items on the agenda for general. However, I would like to welcome everyone and thank you. This is a packed audience for what we're used to. So again, thank you all for joining us this evening. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Councilor Berman's birthday is today. So happy birthday, Councilor Berman. Thank you for joining us on tonight.
No place I'd rather be, Mr. Mayor. No place I'd rather be.
With that, moving on to item 5, committee correspondence. Any committee correspondence at this time? No committee correspondence. Moving on to item 6, public comment. First up is Linda Burville. And for those coming up, please state your name and address for the record, and please keep your time to 3 minutes and speak directly into the microphone.
Good evening. Linda Burville, 7 Plymouth Drive. I'm the coordinator of the Age-Friendly Saco Transportation Program. First, I'd like to express sincere appreciation on behalf of all the riders who have benefited from the contributions from the city this year. While many of our riders would love to be here to show their support for the continuation of the program, many of them are not physically able, feel a sense of shame, or ironically don't have a ride to get here. There is no question all of you are caring individuals who want what's best for our community, and you value providing the rides to our most valuable residents. Therefore, I'm not going to spend time explaining how important it is. Instead, I'd like to share what I've learned since taking on this role. Like you, I knew providing rides to our older residents would be a wonderful service to offer. I quickly realized it's more like a necessity. While Jean Saunders, the executive director of Age Friendly, along with other community members, will be speaking in regards to data, the barriers, and the need, I thought it would be helpful for you to get a glimpse of the personal impact our ride service makes on someone's life. The process starts with a phone call from someone who is either trying to feel less burdensome on their family and friends, or someone who is desperate because we are their last hope of getting a much-needed medical appointment because they don't have anyone local to help. Once their eligibility is established and we're determined we can meet their needs, relief can be heard in their voice. Here are some of the actual statements I've heard on the end of a call. I don't know what I would have done without you. You just took all my worry away. Trying to find a ride has been very stressful. You have no idea what this means to me. The next one in particular is etched in my mind and echoed by every single driver. Thank you. I never thought I'd be in this position. I've had many heartfelt stories to share, but there's one that sums it up nicely. My first ride was a couple in their 90s. We had a wonderful conversation. We spoke about their 4 children who lived in different states and took turns checking in on them every week. I learned they lived in New York most of their life. When I asked what brought them to Saco, the man replied, well, I was a pilot for Pan Am. Incidentally, if you remember Pan Am, you're not as young as you think you are. He said when he would be approaching the Portland airport, I would look down and see the beautiful coastline and thought, that's where I want to retire. I immediately thought how ironic it was that here was someone who flew commercial planes, provided rides to thousands of passengers all over the world, and is now in a position where he can't get himself to an appointment 10 minutes away. My guess is while he was flying over the southern coast of Maine, dreaming about his retirement, he never thought he would be a passenger and reliant on a stranger to get him where he needed to go. If you think about it, we're all headed in the same direction. Now that we have this wisdom, let's use the runway to fix the problems we have before we get grounded. And while I could go on and on with the puns, I will leave you with the hope that you will arrive at a decision to continue to support our partnership on this pilot program. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Gail Merritt.
Hi, my name is Gail Merritt, and I live at 3 Parker Circle. I'm here tonight in support of H-Friendly Saco's transportation program. I am in hopes of seeing continued support from the City of Saco. We started giving rides to seniors as of February 11th, 2022, as they were unable to get to their medical appointments due to issues that no longer allow them to drive. The bus system does not accommodate the needs of these seniors, as many are not on bus routes or the bus does not go to where the appointment is. Many cannot physically get to the bus stops. Taking an Uber or other means are either very expensive, only give a ride to the appointment, and either can't bring them home, or they need to wait a long period of time to be picked up after their appointments. Some services are only on specific days, and we all know doctor's offices schedule on their time, not ours. There are approximately 62 Saco residents using our service right now, and the drivers have given approximately 718 rides to date. These seniors are now getting to all their appointments, as the drivers will pick them up at their home, drive them to the facility, and wait for them so they can bring them back home. There are times the driver may have to wait 1 to 2 hours at the appointment to take the rider back home. We do not have a fee for this service, which is wonderful due to the fact that many of these people have many appointments. Some of them have appointments 2 or 3 times a week. This is also beneficial, as the drivers and the riders are able to converse and the rider does not feel so isolated from everything. We've been fortunate to have one of our drivers use a Saco Rec van. However, he's the only one that does, and Saco Rec uses the van quite often too. We have approximately 10 drivers, and they not only give of their time, but they use their own vehicles and gas. Thankfully, they are given gas cards periodically to offset the money they pay out. The people that receive the rides are so thankful for this program. Some are vision impaired, some are in wheelchairs and/or walkers, etc., and can't get around without this program. Many do not have the funds to pay someone to take them to appointments, especially when they have more than one a week and could be charged each direction for their appointment. The best part is they no longer have to pick and choose which appointments that they can go to anymore. H-Friendly works diligently in many ways to keep the elderly in their homes as long as possible. If not for a program like this, they could end up in assisted living facilities so that they could get to their appointments, or worse, not get the medical attention that they need at all. There's been a tremendous amount of work to get us where we are today, from obtaining and learning the new computer system, recruiting someone to run the program and drivers, and training everyone with the process. Many hours have been put in by everyone to ensure this program succeeds. The first year of any new program is difficult, but I feel H-Friendly is doing a great job, and there are a number of very happy seniors in Saco now getting to their medical appointments. Someday, we may all be in the position that these riders are in. I hope at that time that there is assistance such as this to help us. Please allow us to continue helping these seniors by giving us the support we need to continue this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Sheldon Nightingale.
Her timing was impeccable. I mean, Sheldon Nightingale, Ward 7. I'm going to be very brief. Obviously, I'm here on behalf of H-Friendly Saco and their, transportation, project that we're running. I'll say that I moved here 6 years ago into Saco. My wife and I did. We live in Mill number 4. I'm 75 years old. I've lived in a lot of communities. I've been involved in a lot of organizations. I have never been in an organization that is as involved and committed as H-Friendly Saco is. Everybody else, we have other people that can come up here and give you the facts and the figures. I just want to, and I'm sure you guys know this, and lady, excuse me, that how fortunate, the town is and the community members here. that we are here doing what we're doing. We're touching a lot of people's lives. You know, and another thing, you can look out here and you can see all these people sitting back here. They're all here on behalf of Age-Friendly Saco. And then you take into the people that we've helped. So we make up a good percentage of the voters in town as well. So, you know, just as a reminder. But that's really all I wanted to say, is that, you know, we certainly appreciate any support, and, you know, we don't waste your money. We appreciate it, and, you know, we think it's going to a very good cause, and we hope that you believe the same. As I'm departing, I will say one other thing. I'm also involved with Saco Food Pantry, and you guys probably don't hear an awful lot about that over the time. But that is another outstanding organization in town, and they could use your support, whether it's monetary or just some publicity or something at some point as well. But thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Jack Savannah.
Good evening, everybody. And I'm here to support Age-Friendly Saco's medical transport service. I live over off the Riverwalk on Factory Island. I'm renting an apartment there. Fortunately, I'm near the transportation center. So I have grown up in Brooklyn, New York, and I was used to riding public transportation. It was the only thing we had. We never had a car. And I wanted to do the public transportation up here. And after 6 fender benders and replacing 3 side view mirrors on my car, I gave up driving. I realized I had a depth perception problem, and I really cannot drive, which is very limiting for me. I can't see my grandkids as much as I'd like, and so forth. I am 80 years old. I have Parkinson's, and unfortunately, it's under control pretty much. My tremors are under control. But if it happens that I do not, or if I have Parkinson's and it takes over, I'm going to be limited in what I can do. I won't be able to walk from the bus to the appointment, and I'm going to have to start taking Ubers. And after 38 medical appointments last year, not including the acupuncture and physical therapy that I go to, it's going to cost me a lot of money, easily $1,000, I figured out. Plus, I might not be able to stay in Saco. I might have to go and impose on my daughter, and then she will have to add me to her duties in life and her stresses, and I don't want that. I'd like to be independent. The value that Saco has for me is I have access to 2 cities walking as long as I can, and that's nice. The hills up here and the hill into Biddeford is not as nice, but otherwise I like that. I'm trying to, part of my Parkinson's is getting my thoughts together here. I'd like to mention that one of the benefits of Age-Friendly Saco's transportation is the fact that I can save time in not having to wait 2.5 to 3 hours if I miss a bus, so forth. And I guess my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Dick Hilton.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me in. It's cold outside. I am a little older than Jack is. I'm 85. I'm not 80. But I'm a volunteer with Age Friendly Saco. I do repairs in people's homes, make them safer. I also talk to them about Medicare and save them money. And I guarantee every person I talk to, I save the money. But the major thing is, I guess, is that I walk into a home and I'm accepted. They trust us. I look at their bathrooms to see if they have any of those suction cup grab bars. And I tell them to throw them away. They're dangerous. You'd be surprised how many people don't know they're dangerous. They just trust them. And yet they're going to fall down sometime with them. I also put in light bulbs, hang drapes, move furniture. I put in CO detectors and smoke detectors. And there are many, many seniors out there that don't have a CO detector. And they're really more important than a smoke detector. I'll go in and I'll look around the house and see what they need, whether they need to have rugs taken up that are going to make them trip. But those smoke detectors, I go in and I see they're bright yellow. That means they've been there for quite a while. And I had a customer today that said it's been there since the house was built 26 years ago. Well, they haven't worked for 16 years because they're only good for 10. So we put smoke detectors in that are guaranteed for 10 years. They don't have to replace the battery. How many of you folks forget to replace batteries in yours, right? So a senior really doesn't think about replacing a battery. The CO detectors are also good for 10 years that we use, and you don't have to replace those batteries. I bought CO detectors for our condominium, and I was looking at them the other day, and they're all battery operated that you have to replace the batteries every year. They've been there 3 years and batteries have never been replaced. What good are they? Those are some of the things that we do at Age Friendly to make people more comfortable, all right, and safer in their homes. I hope you're listening to us. And by the way, if any of you ever want to go visit a client with me, I'm open, all right? I will show you how bad Medicare is for seniors, and I'll show you how unsafe their house is. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Up next is Representative Maggie O'Neill.
Good evening, members of council. I'm Maggie O'Neill, and I live at 21 Sheila Circle. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Age Friendly Saco's operational budget. We originally requested $15,000 to support ongoing operations, and I've heard that that has since been reduced to $10,000. I'm going to provide some context. Age Friendly Saco has secured many grants. We don't depend just on city funding, but it's difficult to apply for operations funding. As you know, grants tend to be for specific projects, not general operations. Age Friendly Saco has grown substantially in services provided and in the number of volunteers who are involved with the program. Right now, we have 100 volunteers logging over 8,000 hours. The transportation program alone has provided 718 rides with 14 volunteer drivers. And we're continuing to build programming. We need our operating funds to be proportional to this growth. Age Friendly Saco fills a gap in community services with volunteers, not paid positions. These are positions that we could be providing through our city budget, but we don't. We do this with a team of volunteers. Jean Saunders does the work of a paid executive director, and she coordinates with a large team of fellow volunteers. She was Statewide Volunteer of the Year by AARP. She received an award for that last year. Age Friendly deserves the same appreciation here at home, because she's recognized, she and her team of volunteers are recognized all over the state for the work that they do. Their team of volunteers provide essential services, and there's a huge impact for community members. This is a statement about the values of our community. We value looking out for each other and keeping our residents in our community. So thank you for your time, and I ask that you please support Age Friendly Saco's operational funding.
Thank you. Up next is Glenn Charette.
Good evening. We've heard some pretty impressive information so far. Age Friendly Saco has been around for 7 years with nearly 100 volunteers. And we help the most vulnerable of this city's citizens, and that's our seniors. Currently, according to our comprehensive plan, 19% of Saco's citizens are seniors. In 2025, that will be 22%. A lot of the people we serve are alone. They can't drive. They're surely not going to call an Uber, and they can't take advantage of city transportation because of some form of disability. I just can't imagine any senior allowing a senior to call an Uber for medical transportation or anything else. We don't have a city-appointed vehicle. The vehicle we use, we borrow from Parks and Rec when that's available. I want to repeat a couple lines from our comprehensive plan. Age-friendly cities are deliberately designed to support and accommodate residents throughout their lifetime. As Saco's population ages, the city must provide a variety of facilities and programming. The comp plan further says, continue implementing recommendations of Age-Friendly Saco, and one of the strategies of that policy is listed as transportation. That tells me that the city has an obligation to see that Age-Friendly Saco has a steady form of transportation for our seniors. I'm hoping for the council's approval of our budget to show the seniors of Saco that this is a friendly city to live in and also a community for a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the folks that have signed up to speak. If there's any member of the public who would like to address the city council, please come forward and be heard. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is David Steed, I live at Hillview Heights. I did sign up, by the way. It's on the paper back there. I'm a member of Age Friendly Saco and have been from the beginning in 2016. And I'm a driver for the transportation as well. And I'm also the single driver that gets the use of the rec center vehicle. I'm a medical member. Age Friendly Saco Transportation is in its second year and has been very successful. The program supports older residents of Saco who are unable to drive. We transport them to their medical appointments, wait for them, and bring them back home. Before Age-Friendly Transportation program, the residents had to choose their appointments very carefully, as they could not afford to go to all of them using other paid transport. Our clients are extremely grateful for our program. This warms my heart. That is why I am a driver, and hope that we can, with your help, keep this valuable service alive. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lynn Steed. I'm slightly more talkative than my husband. Age-Friendly Saco serves Saco. Shortly after Age-Friendly Saco came into existence, Saco decided their slogan was friendly by nature. Now that is not an accident. City of Saco has provided office space and some financing to Age-Friendly Saco since 2016 or 17. I'm not really sure when it started, but we've always had support. Age-Friendly Saco has been recognized over and over statewide, even by the governor's office. And I just learned tonight that Jean and my husband David will be traveling to Oklahoma to give a demonstration about our transportation program. It is that respected. That recognition would not be forthcoming without the visionary leadership of Jean Saunders and the support of the City of Saco, and we are grateful for both. When David and I wanted to move here in 2014, we had lists of houses that we were supposed to drive by and decide which ones we wanted to look at. We drove and drove and drove. It felt like miles and miles, and yet we were still in Saco. We settled on Hillview Avenue, which is just over the turnpike. No buses go there. The purported analysis recently passed to the City Council was anything but an analysis. Anyone who has studied statistics knows that numbers can be used to distort reality. Relative to that analysis, the new van for Saco Parks and Rec did not replace the van that we sometimes use. As someone has already mentioned, we're not the only users of that van, and sometimes we're not able to use that van because Saco Parks and Rec needs it. During summer camps, in fact, there'll probably be even more times that we can't use it, so we use our cars. That analysis is technically put wackadoodle and blatantly biased. Further, most real analyses don't involve snark. Population demographics, as Glenn mentioned, put together in 2019, listed a high percentage of Saco's population as 65 or older, and that segment is growing. This percentage is the group that we serve. Who are we to you? We are the generation who raised you, fed you, clothed you, helped you when you needed help. When your children came along, we babysat them, transported them to activities, and took care of them when they were sick so that you would not have to miss work. Who are we to Saco? We are your unpaid volunteers in many organizations, serving the underserved of Saco and sometimes even volunteering in City Hall, which I did at one point in the tax office. We also pay a bundle of taxes in Saco. Our generation does not have children in school. I would guess that the cost of Saco's schools is one of the largest items, probably in Saco's budget. I worked in education my entire career. I don't begrudge those tax dollars spent on children in their schools. Neither do I figure that cost per child relative to the cost of the buses, the building, the teachers, the aides, the books, or any other costs related to their grandchildren's education. Children are important. I get that. What about us? Are we no longer important? A fact of our lives is that at some point, it will not be safe for us to drive. Of our point, it's also probable that we will need medical attention. How do we get there? I plan to be a safe driver myself until I'm at least 100. I have a friend who was. Perhaps you knew her, Bella Cowan. She was a great driver, even at 100. But supposing I'm not, remember where I live? Past the turnpike, off Buxton Road. No bus line comes near there. Think of the older adults in North Saco. It's even worse for them because they can't even walk anywhere. So here's my point. Take a look at the Saco school budget. then look at what age-friendly Saco is requesting. It's a drop in the bucket by comparison. Yet, it will enable us to continue serving a growing portion of Saco's population, no less important than you or us, or your children, or our grandchildren. Saco, friendly by nature. Ask yourselves, friendly to whom? Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any other member of the public that would like to speak to the council, please come forward and be heard.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Pylon. I'm at 16 Glen Haven Circle West at Saco. And I'm here, it's no secret, I'm here about the Dyer Library and the Saco Museum. Somebody needs to mention them tonight. Our programs for all ages are important to the community. The library hosts children from Burn School and all the others for after school. They have many, many programs for toddlers on up. Adults are using the library services more and more. The museum is having an ever-strengthening connection to the Saco schools with their education programs. Right now, the Saco Schools art exhibit is at the museum until the 28th. It's delightful. You should all go. So I just want to thank the City Council for your past, present, and future support. And I'm speaking as a member of the Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any other member of the public that would like to speak to the city council, please come forward and be heard. With that, that concludes the public comment section of our agenda, and that moves us on to item 7, and that is the approval of the meeting minutes for April 10, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilor Hatch, is there a second?
Second.
Councilor McPhail, any discussion on the approval of the minutes for April 10, 2023? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to approve the minutes. On to item 8 of the agenda, and that is the consent items. Item A, to approve membership and appointment of voting delegate representative and alternate to the Main Service Center Coalition. Is there a motion to support a motion to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Councilor McPhail, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Any discussion on the consent items? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to approve the consent agenda. Moving on to item 9 of action items. Item A is confirm the appointment of Christy Sear as the tax collector assigned to Councilor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. According to Article 5, Departments and Divisions, Section 4-14, Department of Finance, C3, the head of this division shall be the tax collector, who shall be appointed by the city administrator on the recommendation of the finance director and confirmed by the city council. The hiring team interviewed candidates for this position and agreed on hiring Christy Sear as the tax collector. Be it ordered that the city council confirm the appointment of Christy Sear as Saco's tax collector. I move to approve the order.
Motion's been made by Councilor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Hatch. Before we move on to any discussion, City Administrator Canrath.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really pleased to appoint Christy Sear as our tax collector. Christy has many years of experience in tax collection with the City of Biddeford as the City of Biddeford's tax collector, and also most recently as Biddeford City Clerk. So she's highly qualified. We're lucky to have her. Christy's also here. If you want to wave and say hello, Christy. To everyone, thank you for being here. Again, really pleased to appoint Christy to this position. We are in good hands with her and urge her confirmation. Thank you very much.
Any discussion On the appointment? No discussion, roll call vote. Counselor Archer?
Aye.
Counselor Purdy?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor McPhail?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to item B, an emergency moratorium on commercial solar energy systems assigned to Counselor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After careful consideration, city staff recommends an emergency ordinance to establish a 61-day moratorium on commercial solar energy systems throughout the city of Saco, as outlined in the attached emergency ordinance. The purpose of this emergency ordinance is to provide time for updates to the city's code of ordinances to better regulate life safety and environmental concerns of commercial solar energy systems. Be it found by the Saco City Council that an emergency exists, and therefore be it ordered that the city adopt the emergency moratorium ordinance on commercial solar energy systems, and that during the time of the moratorium it is in effect, no board, officer, body, agency, agent, or employee of the city of Saco shall accept, process, or act upon any application for any approval related to the establishment of a commercial solar energy system.
Motion's been made by Counselor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Johnston. City Administrator Canrath, you have an update for us?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing of note, city staff did discuss today, and I talked to a number of you already. If you'd like to eliminate the retroactivity piece of it, staff does support that. There are no projects that will be impacted, so I know that was a discussion point among many of you. And staff is supportive of that change if you'd like to do an amendment to remove the retroactive piece of it.
Thank you. Any discussion on the emergency moratorium on commercial solar energy systems? Counselor Berman, then Counselor Hatch.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As those who know me know, I'm a strong supporter of alternative energy and solar systems in general. Nevertheless, large commercial-scale solar projects can propose a risk to both health, safety, and the environment, as well as create changes to the nature of a neighborhood or rural area. As I understand, our current ordinance does not do enough to define what we mean by commercial solar projects and to set limits on those things, whereas the desire to create these kinds of systems is really increasing in our region. Therefore, I am going to support the moratorium. Nevertheless, I think we have to be really careful with retroactive ordinances. I think changing the rules on people after the fact is a dangerous precedent. I'm glad to hear that there are no projects in the pipeline that would be affected, but I do think it's wise to remove the retroactive portion nevertheless and save retroactive ordinances for true emergencies. I'm going to move, therefore, that we strike number 2 on page 5 of our packet. That's under the emergency ordinance. Now, therefore, point number 2, moratorium retroactivity. I want to strike the retroactive portions of this ordinance.
Second.
Amendment's been made by Counselor Berman, second by Counselor Archer, to remove the retroactivity piece out of subsection 2 of the moratorium. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. On the amendment only now, on the amendment only. Any discussion on the amendment only to remove retroactivity? Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote on the amendment only. Counselor Archer.
Aye.
Counselor Purdy.
Yes.
Counselor Gunn.
Yes.
Counselor Berman.
Yes.
Counselor Hatch.
Yes.
Counselor McPhail.
Yes.
Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
The amendment passes 7-0. Back to the main motion as amended. Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle. After meeting with City Administrator Canrath and City Planner Prescott last week, I was seeking a better understanding of the genesis of this agenda item. And I do want to begin my comments by expressing my support for this emergency moratorium. I also want to commend the City Administrator and the City Planner for recognizing one of the many areas of our zoning ordinance that is in need of tweaking and bringing this very important initiative before the Council this evening. What really disappoints me is the fact that staff had to take the initiative on this ordinance issue while many other equally important, if not more important, areas of our zoning ordinance need tweaking. The only way they could see to accomplish this change is via a reactive emergency moratorium. No proactive smart growth strategy was available to them. In September of last year, I brought forth the topic of a broader temporary moratorium to provide a brief timeout to address and tweak several ordinance weaknesses. I did not suggest a complete, time-consuming rewrite of the zoning ordinance, which was suggested by one of the council-level dissenters. All I suggested was a simple review and tweaking of the existing zoning ordinance. The message got distorted by the hyperbole of the dissenter. My suggested moratorium also embraced the broader issues surrounding affordable housing incentives and infrastructure concerns. 3 council members, including myself, had the foresight to agree. Of the remaining decision-making level folks, 1 did not vote, and 4 others, including the mayor, objected vehemently without providing alternative ideas or strategies. It was not a very good display of council leadership and collaboration. So 6 months later, here we are. No alternative strategies have been brought forward by the 4 who objected or the 1 who did not vote. Our neighbors to the north in Scarborough have prudently developed a smart growth strategy by adopting a residential growth ordinance. Our neighbors to the south, Biddeford, recently approved a smart growth strategy by adopting a development moratorium, providing time to tweak their zoning ordinance, primarily in the area of affordable housing. Kudos to both of our neighboring communities. However, in Saco, we continue to sit on our hands and do nothing to develop smart growth residential development strategies and direct action plans to our city administrator. Thankfully, he and City Planner Prescott have stepped forward on the commercial solar energy system issue because waiting any longer could be disastrous. It's sad that we have to be reactive instead of proactive. So I've asked the city administrator to place on the next available workshop agenda the general topic of housing. I am hopeful that those who oppose the moratorium proposed last September can come forth with better ideas to address affordable housing and infrastructure issues that include smart growth strategies and action plans clearly articulated to City Administrator Cainrath. I look forward to hearing your alternative ideas, suggested action plans, and welcome the anticipated debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to commend staff for bringing this forward, specifically City Planner Prescott, though. It's a situation where, along the short of it, where if Saco doesn't tighten up their rules, we're pretty much at the behest of Augusta's rules. And as my colleagues on the council and in the general public can attest, that if we're just leaving things up to Augusta, they don't quite, it's not a one-size-fit-all type deal, though. So in terms of what would be permissible in terms of large-scale solar panels, farms, commercial of that matter, whether it would have impacts on our neighbors in terms of environmental impacts, the actions taken by staff will basically tighten up that language for regulatory purposes, though. So we don't have a situation like we had when the windmill stopped working and it just sat there for a couple of years, though, because there was no force to actually get rid of it very quickly. I think Portland even ran into that with their public art, though. So this is going to tighten up the language quite nicely. In terms of size and composition of future solar systems within the city limits, I think it would be prudent at some point, and I've talked to a number of councilors about this, that this summer we can, once the moratorium, if we do pass the moratorium, is complete, we can have discussions based off both staff input and our own research about what size and compositions that we would be looking for both commercial and any residential solar farms, though, that want to contribute to clean energy, to basically sell it back to the grid, because along the short of it is when it comes to solar and other renewables, Saco's not alone in being sort of a day late and a dollar short on it, though, but the fact that we're actually doing our part now, better late than never, and Saco can have our fair share of the solution to our environmental needs. So truth be told, though, once we get the regulatory stuff taken care of, though, we can have a discussion at council level about what Saco needs in terms of, and what Saco wants in terms of size, location, et cetera, though. But this is a good, solid first step. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item now as amended? No further discussion. Roll call vote. Councilor Archer.
Aye.
Councilor Purdy.
Yes.
Councilor Gunn.
Yes.
Councilor Berman.
Yes.
Councilor Hatch.
Yes.
Councilor McPhail.
Yes.
Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 as amended. Brings us to item C, and that is the fiscal year 2024 budget presentations. And first up, we will hear from Saco Main Street. Welcome, Executive Director Presby. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good.
The magic has happened. Okay. Good evening, council members, Mayor Doyle, and City Administrator Kainrath. Thank you for the opportunity to present. My name is Angie Presby. I'm the Executive Director for Saco Main Street. I stand before you tonight as a lifelong Saco resident, TA alumni, class of 2001, parent of children in the Saco school system, and contributor to our local economy. This slide highlights our executive committee, board of directors, and Holly Gordon, our program coordinator, who celebrated 6 years with Saco Main Street on March 1st. This group is dedicated, driven, and determined to do great things for downtown Saco. The time they spend at board meetings, organizing events, working on financials, contacting sponsors, or on our weekly executive check-in calls is extraordinary. A volunteer hour in Maine was rated at $26.77 in 2021. Our executive team alone donates roughly 50 hours per month to our organization, which is around $16,000 for the year. I'd like to thank all the board members for the many hours they volunteer for our organization and our community events as well. We have a really great group of people who love Saco, and we appreciate their commitment to Saco Main Street. Our mission, the IRS has approved us as a nonprofit to lessen the burden of local government by working with planning and development directors and local businesses to revitalize Saco's Main Street and downtown. Our vision is to support a Main Street that provides economic, cultural, and recreational opportunities so residents, guests, and businesses can enjoy a vibrant downtown Saco. Our 2023 focus this year will focus on building our program, continuing our signature events, and creating a development plan. Main Street programs are seen to create the most impactful results for lively downtowns. To do this, we use the 4-point approach as suggested by the Main Street America program shown in this diagram. The 4 points are economic vitality, promotion, organization, and design. There is no more cost-effective program of economic development of any kind in the United States today, says Ann Ball, Senior Program Director for Maine Downtown Center. We belong to the Main Street Maine program led by Ann Ball, whom we lean towards for guidance and support as our coordinating program. We are one of only 10 communities in Maine with the special distinction of being in an accredited national Main Street through Main Street America. This is a network consisting of 1,600 neighborhoods and communities across the United States with access to education, resources, support, and best practices. What a Main Street program brings to a city. Listed here are similar values that any nationally accredited Main Street provides to their city. Healthy economy, increased volunteer base, more grant availability, easing workload of city departments. We will also be a resource for Saco's comprehensive plan as referenced in the implementation matrix, and we will work on developing a downtown building inventory with the Economic Development Department. Our 2022 signature events, they were some of the most successful we've seen. Our signature events continue to grow. Many of you may have been there to experience the fun, and as you can see, we brought nearly 18,000 people to downtown Saco. Community support at the bottom of the slide shows volunteer base of 50 people with 2,000 volunteer hours for the year. The value of those donated donated volunteer hours is $53,540. The impact of building community is priceless. Now I'd like to introduce Beth Gumry, our volunteer treasurer, who is the CEO and CFO for a turnaround consultant firm for nonprofits. She will go over our 2023 financials.
Thank you, and thank you for having us. This is an excerpt of our budget for 2023. As you can see, we are now tracking our income and expenses using classes, so we can create useful reporting to tell us how we're doing. You'll see we have three main groupings here: admin, development, and programs. In the program section, you'll see a green shaded area. That is the cost of running the Main Street program Angie described earlier. We hope for the program itself to raise an additional $5,000 in addition to our city funding request to defray the costs of having a Main Street program in Saco. Of the program support requested from the city, this is how it breaks down, how we use your money. The city is defraying most costs of staff for 1.5 FTE. By the way, we are required to have at least 1 FTE to have a Main Street program. Your funds are also covering our website, about half of our program operational costs, about half of our facilities costs, and a bit to cover event insurance. One of the features of the Main Street program is that we're required to show support from our city, our local businesses, and our local residents. To that end, our third big area of focus is to build a development function within the organization. We are, after all, a 501c3 organization in good standing, and you can donate to Saco Main Street at any time, even outside of events. We are forming a development committee. If there's anybody in this room that has development experience, please join us. In conclusion, if you took the $100,000 that the city gave us last year and divided that by the 17,800 people that our events brought to Saco last year, that would be an investment of $5.62 per person. Quite a value.
In closing, Saco Main Street is a great value to the city of Saco. We'd like to thank you again for all of your support over the years. Together, the city of Saco and Saco Main Street can accomplish great things. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? No questions? Thank you very much. Up next, we will hear from Dyer Library. We'll hear from their executive director, Leslie Rounds.
That went very well. Hi, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. I think this might be my 17th year to come here and present our budget, and might be my last, don't know, kind of thinking about it. So the Dyer Library has been serving the city of Saco for 142 years, and the museum for a couple of decades longer than that. So that seems like kind of a major success story to me. Our mission is to promote lifelong learning for all. We serve the informational, educational, cultural, and recreational needs of the residents of Saco and neighboring communities, and provide the patrons with the use of our collections, accessible and affordable exhibitions and programs, and state-of-the-art resources that are offered free to the residents of Saco. But we do more than that. When I breezed back to the library about 5:30, we had been closed for about a half an hour, and my reference librarian was sitting in the reference room because there was an elderly man there who was not quite done with what he wanted to do on the computer. He doesn't have one at home. So he had made himself comfortable, and so had my reference librarian. I see my staff carry books out to cars for people. And a couple of years ago, we had an Eagle Scout come into the museum that was particularly interested in seashells, and he reclassified our ancient seashell collection, the entire thing, as his Eagle Scout project. We do all kinds of strange, quirky things like that for people. And I think that we are dear to the heart of the citizens of Saco. I think when you drive down Main Street, and Main Street in Saco is rich with architectural gems that when you get to the Dyer Library and the Saco Museum, you see the jewels of the crown jewels sitting there. And this organization, these people that work there, they enhance life for the city of Saco in ways that are probably not quantifiable. But, of course, as I always say, we have the only free computer service in town for people. We have free meeting room space, free art exhibitions. We have free book talks, book discussion groups, walking tours, a knitting group. We have all kinds of free programming for children. And nearly every year, we have either the top number of children served by programs in the state of Maine, or we're second. Not this year, but it's kind of was a cheat. The statistics I'm going to show you for this year are actually statistics that represent the year 2021, which was the height of the COVID epidemic. And although the Dyer Library was open and we were offering some programming, it certainly was a scaled back year for us. And the combined door count of 75,000 for that year also was a scaled back number. Our number is typically more like 150,000, and I think we're about back at that now. This is a Dr. Seuss party from just before COVID, and you can see that the library was packed with people. We have friendly customer service. There's the reference desk and the public access computers. We have all kinds of engaging educational programming. We have a Lego club that is on Wednesdays after school, and the kids just stream in for that. And we must have a collection of, like, I don't know, 20,000 Lego pieces or something at this point. So they have an excellent time. And then we have a Pokemon group that seems to attract mostly little boys that are like 7 to 9 years old, and they just go at it for their hour. And this afternoon, there were some kids in the library that were playing chess, and the children's librarian reached out to them, and they're going to now start a chess club on Monday afternoons. We have been serving Saco schools with educational programming. Once upon a time, the kids in Saco used to travel down to the York Jail Complex Museum once a year. Now they have this rich historical program that involves our visits to the schools and the schools' visits to us. And the kids come in and they learn how to card wool, and they get to try a loom and different things like that that, you know, most kids probably only imagine if they could even think of them. But Anatole, that works at the museum, has just come up with all these innovative programs that are very hands-on. This is kids visiting the museum. We have a program about immigration in the mills. There is Anatole showing kids a map. This Sea Captain program is one that we do at the various, like the landing and places like that. We have this remarkable museum that has these more exhibits in a year than organizations that are many times larger, and it's just 3 full-time people working there turning these things out with the help of volunteers. However, when I compare our library to other libraries, these are some of the towns that I would think that we are relatively similar to. And often I show you this is the latest numbers on that, and I think the most significant number on this is the per capita, either operating expenses or collections expenses, where we almost fall pretty much near the bottom year after year after year. There is the Dyer Library at the bottom, what we can afford to spend on collections. In the 17 years I've been here, our collections budget has risen from about 40,000 to about 50,000. And you got to know that the cost of books has increased disproportionately higher than that. And so some of our collection looks like that. When it comes to full-time equivalents per 1,000 population, there we are at the bottom again. And I'm not whining about that, because I think that the people at the Dyer Library work smart, and I think that when you look at the higher numbers on this of different libraries, it's a bad thing to say, but I think they got too many, and partly that, so there's what we do customers per full-time equivalent compared to those libraries. So you take it from the bottom to the top. This average pay per staff position, I am pleased to say I looked back at some other years, and my employees are gradually coming to match what those other libraries are paying, and that is very nice to see. We've had some, cost of living pay raises over the last 3 years, and when I did the math a couple of days ago, I realized that my staff cost of living increases have exactly kept up with the cost of living since 2020. So it's come out pretty even. But we have our issues. We have flooding in the nonfiction stacks all the time. We have, last night, I got called by Saco security because the smoke alarm had gone off. It had gone off because it had shorted out because the bathroom was flooding from a pipe on the roof that's supposed to drain the rainwater away, and it's obstructed somewhere. So then I called the police department just to drive by and make sure it really wasn't on fire, and they called the fire department, and the fire department called me. It was all very cool. So we have challenges like that. And when you look at operating expenses per capita, the top of this is 2023, 3262 per capita. And in 2019, it was 3543. So then you get flooding in the museum basement and the windowsills cracking. I'm pleased to say the parking lot, Public Works has come out a couple of years in a row and kind of jackhammered a big section and replaced it, and that's made the parking lot last longer, which is really good. We do what we can to raise money. These are books waiting to be carried upstairs in order to become part of the book sale that we have every summer. The book sale is now earning us almost $20,000 a year. When I first started here, it was worth about $1,500 a year, so that's a pretty substantial increase. We have the Festival of Trees at the museum, which raises for us another $25,000 to $27,000 a year. And that money, we turn it around and it goes back into children's programming and the knitting group and kids having a good time. So I want to thank you for all your support. There were years when I used to report to you and I would come home and cry afterward because it was so discouraging. And this city council is not like that. You have been so supportive of your library and museum, and I think it's because you share my pride in this organization. So thank you very much. A minor thing, so our electricity rates tripled this year, which was really terrible. We had this really wonderful contract and it ended. And that's too bad because like 5 years ago, we went with geothermal, so we are now all electric buildings. So we investigated in the fall, I hesitate to say, solar panels that I thought we could just lay flat on the roof, but it turns out that our roofs aren't really as flat as I thought, and that won't work. So now we have made arrangements with windowdressers.org, and we're getting ready to add an additional layer of glazing to all the windows in the library, which is going to make a big difference, I think, in keeping the building warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer and save us a lot of money for not much money. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Councilor McPhail.
Not a question, but just more of a statement, in fact, that thank you, Leslie, thank you for the work, all of the volunteers, the staff. One thing that we need to remember as a city is that we're blessed to have the library and the museum in 2 historic buildings. But unfortunately, with that does come increased operating cost. And as Leslie said, the windows need to be replaced. We're trying to find alternatives. And the volunteer hours, not only liaison, but a volunteer of myself for the Festival of Trees, the book fair, the capital campaigns that the library does to offset and to try to keep the buildings up and running. And unfortunately, the older they get, the more there are. And, but we are blessed to have 2 beautiful buildings and pride of the city. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, we're going to hear from Age Friendly and Executive Director Gene Saunders.
So I have a friend behind the curtain, I believe, that's supposed to start the slideshow. There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, Administrator Kainrath. We're very fortunate to be here tonight and talk to you about all things age-friendly and how we are all working. You can see we have a very dedicated group of volunteers to make the city more livable for all. Next slide. Just to bring you back to 2017, when the city of Saco committed, under the leadership at that time of Mayor Ron Michaud, to join the network of age-friendly communities. We were committed to completing a 5-year after-action progress report. We are in the process of doing that right now, and from this part of the report, you will see how much we've grown over the years. This picture is the first, the poster from our first meeting, our launch in June 15th of 2017. Next slide. Age Friendly continues to build upon its strong volunteer base to expand programs and services we offer, such as Saco Cycles, our new adaptive bike program that allows our older residents to experience the joy of a bike ride once again. We also hosted a very well-attended wellness fair at Thornton Academy this year, in which we held different seminars on different topics, one of which was how to build an ADU, and we had an ADU builder present. The last photo you see is a picture of our Valentine's Day meal, in which over 20 volunteer drivers delivered 350 meals to our tri-community area. Next slide. So this slide is a demonstration of the community services that the Age Friendly Saco provides. You can see, you've already heard from Dick Hilton, who we talked about our handy helpers. We have 26 handy helpers as part of our volunteer group right now. Tech handy helpers are the folks that help people get digitally connected. We had a grant that we were able to provide 25 tablets, as well as Echo Dot smart plugs, help people learn how to stream through that process. You can see the USDA food box program. That's a monthly program in which our volunteers deliver food boxes. So since 2017, you can see how many food boxes we've delivered, over 1,700 food boxes. We also have a strong working relationship with the Saco Food Pantry. Our age-friendly volunteers make those food deliveries. Just today, I received a call from a young woman with a child who was very sad and asking for help, and didn't feel she could reach out to the Saco Food Pantry, and I assured her that she most certainly could, and that we had volunteers that would be happy to help her out. We have a very dedicated staff of office volunteers. We're very fortunate to work with Saco Parks and Rec to have an office in the building. We have volunteers that volunteer Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. that answer the phones and direct our residents to various resources. We have our transportation services, which I'll talk about, our meals program, our sand bucket program, which is is how we got started. with Public Works. Our Saco Cycles adaptive bike program and our Knox Box program, which we're working on right now, we're able to, with Habitat for Humanity, to get a number of Knox boxes free for our residents, as well as we are underwriting the cost of some Knox boxes to make them more available to our residents. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Comfortably Home. I'm going to skip over that right now. And this past December, Saco Main Street asked us to help with answering letters to Santa. So we were involved in that with Thornton Academy as well. So next slide. So there are also there are additional initiatives other than what you saw relative to community services. We're involved at the state level. We've been working very closely with Representative O'Neill and others to develop a home share program in the state. Stay tuned, you're going to hear a lot more about that. In addition, we're now working with the planning and communication departments here to create a how-to manual on how to build an ADU specific to the City of Saco's ordinance. Many of our age-friendly volunteers attended a shelter training course coordinated by our fire department at York County Emergency Management. We're also exploring the possibility of providing a free monthly luncheon for our older adults. We just found out last week we received a $20,000 grant from Southern Maine Area Agency on Aging, so we're hoping that we can put that money to good use in providing these meals. We're also, given that we have such a large number of volunteer drivers, exploring the possibility of providing rides for other than just medical appointments. We know that in order to stay healthy and engaged in your community, it's important to be able to do things other than just go to medical appointments. This past week, we were also visited by Elizabeth Gatine. She works for the governor's office. She's the chair of the Cabinet on Aging, and she was very interested in understanding the work of Age-Friendly Saco, what our challenges were, what our success story was. She met with our 18-member operations team, and it was a really great discussion. So now I'm going to move, next slide, to the transportation services, because I think it's important to understand, what goes into the transportation service. So back in 2021, Age Friendly was asked by Mayor Doyle to develop a pilot on-demand transportation program to help our residents access medical appointments. Through grant funding, we're able to begin with 2 AmeriCorps members. We quickly needed to pivot in order to meet the need and work to develop a group of volunteer drivers. And we're very fortunate to have the number we have. We met last week with York County Community Action, who asked to meet with us around our volunteer driver program. They too provide rides for all of York County, medical rides for all of York County, which is very inadequate to meet the demand. They have 8 drivers for the entire county. We have 14 for the City of Saco. It's important to realize, as was mentioned before, that our volunteers use their own personal vehicles at their own expense, and they provide rides. Currently, the radius we serve is from Kennebunk to Falmouth. These drivers stay with our residents during their appointments and provide any assistance they need to get them back to the vehicle to the return for their trip home. To date, our drivers have traveled 7,049 miles, have waited an average of 2.5 hours for an appointment, and donated 813 hours of their time to provide a total of 718 rides. Next slide, please. Clearly, we would not be able to do the work that we do with just expecting the city to assist us with our work. So we have worked very hard since 2017 to obtain grants. And this graphic is an example of all of the places that we have received grants from. So you can see that when there's a number behind it, like the Maine Community Foundation, Huntington Commons Fund, we've received more than one grant from these particular grantors. Next slide, please. So since starting, we have received $100,400 in grant funds. These have been for different programs, such as being able to provide Knox boxes, be able to provide tablets, Echo Dots. Echo Dots are being used as virtual personal assistants by our residents to stay in their homes more safely. We also address food insecurity and now expenses relative to programming such as Saco Cycles. Saco Cycles was a grant that we received from the Huntington Commons Charitable Fund. Next slide, please. So in addition to these grants that we've received outright, we've also made an impact on our community through our collaboration with our local partners. We partnered with Habitat for Humanity for a $10,000 Maine Community Foundation grant so that we could provide $1,000 worth of repairs and home modifications to 10 homes in Saco. Last December, we were approached by Biddeford Housing to help organize all the age-friendly communities of northern York County to assist in an application for Comfortably Home funds that are funded through the Maine Housing Department. Biddeford Housing subsequently received those funds, and these funds are currently being used to help 23 households in our tri-community area. And Saco has the largest number because we're most able to identify our customers and also address the need. We also applied for a Maine Health Access Foundation grant. We expect to hear the outcome of that in a few weeks. We're very positive about the possibility. And this would be to hire a consultant and bring all stakeholders together in our tri-community area to work on developing a broader solution to create a more accessible transportation system for all. We've also applied for a AARP Challenge grant through the Toyota Foundation to better understand how a microtransit system might benefit our tri-community area. Next slide, please. So just so everybody understands, you've heard some of this before, but just so that everybody understands, it is not easy to start a volunteer driver program and manage it. There's a whole process that you need to go through. Once we have interested volunteers, we have to do our background checks, we have to do our due diligence, we have to check references. Once the information is checked, we also have to check license, make sure it's valid. We have to check insurance coverage for the volunteer. Each new volunteer goes under a very rigorous orientation process, and then they're added to our liability insurance coverage that Age Friendly Saco has paid for through our transportation grant funding. Then the driver gets to start driving. Next slide, please. This is a demonstration of what the transportation volunteer in-kind contributions are. So we're asking for support for the transportation manager, but this represents an additional analysis of all the costs that go into the program and the gift that our volunteer drivers are giving, not only in the use of their time, but their personal vehicles and fuel costs. We also are obviously providing ongoing day-to-day management of the program. In addition, we also used a grant to purchase software, which we will be required to pay for each ongoing year, but it's called Assisted Rides, and that's why we have such fantastic statistics. We also, as I said, provide the umbrella insurance coverage for our volunteer drivers. So our best estimate is that beyond the role of the transportation coordinator, Age Friendly Saco provides $31,226 of in-kind donation just for the volunteer program. Next slide, please. So I like to call Age Friendly Saco a low-cost, high-impact program. What is the value to our community? We have close to 100 volunteers that had delivered over 8,000 volunteer hours. We have the ability to capture hours now through our software program. Using the same dollar amount as Saco Main Street, that value comes out to $208,000 in value. We had this year $56,600 in grants, and we also raised money through individual sponsors such as the Rotary Club and the banks to support the meal program. So that's how we got another $6,000. So the total value to the city is $270,600. Next slide, please. So our age-friendly budget request is continued support of our operations. We asked for $15,000, but it's been reduced to $10,000. And I'm hoping that when you heard tonight all that we do and understand the complexity of managing all these programs, you'll understand why operating funds are important to us. As was mentioned before, you cannot apply for grants for operating funds. That is something that you need to figure out separately than grant funds. So we're looking for the support, continued support of the transportation coordinator, as well as operations. Next slide, please. So with every dollar of support that the city of Saco provides, Age Friendly Saco delivers $4 in services to our residents. So that's the end of my speaking, but right now I'd like to show a short clip so that we can hear the voices of the residents that couldn't be here tonight because they didn't have a ride to get here. It's a very short clip. Hopefully it will start soon. I'll give the background of how we got this video. It was one of the realtors that was involved with backyard ADUs that was very impressed with the work of age-friendly Saco. So he asked if he could provide some assistance in helping to create a video. So he did a video of our transportation program, which I think Alex or Andrew is going to play any moment now. It's supposed to be sound. There is sound. It's supposed to be sound, yeah. That's the point, is listening to the voices. It sounded magical. We did check ahead of time that we were all set. Oh, there we go.
Age-friendly Saco provides free rides to older residents who do not have transportation to medical appointments. In the transportation program's first year, over 300 round trips were provided, about 3,200 miles traveled, and more than 1,000 hours spent on the road by a dedicated crew of 10 volunteer drivers. Even more impressive is the direct impact this service made in the lives of our senior community members and their families.
It sounds like it helps you as well as the people around you, your family, your friends. You don't feel like a burden.
It's absolutely critical, you know, and it gives you the freedom and the independence, and otherwise you just feel so trapped.
This is very important because I don't drive. I can't see to drive.
Right.
I've been blind for 28 years.
And how often do you use the rideshare service?
Oh, probably 2, 3, 4 times a week.
Oh, wow, that much, huh?
Yeah.
And then you have your appointment, and then David's there when you're done.
Yeah.
That's great. So you're not waiting around after the appointment for someone to come pick you up again. You go right back home again.
Yeah.
Is that important to you?
That's very important.
How old were you when you started driving?
I was 16 when I got my driver's license. I mean, I remember being able to, you know, have my own car and pick up my girlfriend or go to my job. It was just the world that opened to you.
So how old were you when you learned how to drive?
I drove the tractor when I was 10.
10 years old?
Yes. I bought my first car at $250 for an old Chevy.
Yeah. David, how long have you been doing this with Age-Friendly Saco?
The transportation is a year now. It was last February we started.
One thing that I love about this job is I get to meet all kinds of people and I learn about their life and their history and their family. And I didn't even realize that I would like or be exposed to that part of this job. And I think part of Age-Friendly is we're trying to keep people in their home where they're comfortable.
I finally came to the realization that if I kept my driver's license, I would have killed somebody on the road. I would have hit a bicycle driver, rider, or something, not seeing the green light, red light, you know, And it just came to a point where you've got to hang the license up.
Right.
And these guys have been so great. And this is the fantastic service that the city of Saco creates.
But it does give you the freedom. Otherwise, you are just locked in the house. And there's so many people, I'm sure, like me, that can't drive.
Age-Friendly Saco's transportation service has a long-term goal of helping older residents travel about in the community they love, a community in which they feel safe and comfortable, the community they helped build.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Executive Director Saunders? Councillor Hatch, then Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle. Gene, as you know, 2017, I was sitting on that side, helping you figure out how this thing was going to work, and I sit here today and I'm in awe at the progress and the success that that organization has achieved. And I don't even think we've seen the best of it yet. I really don't. So I think as your council liaison and a sitting councilor here, I am going to be very supportive of your needs and do what I can to help you. And the turnout tonight's unbelievable. So kudos to all of you volunteers.
They're what makes it happen.
Yeah. And there's so much going on, and I thank the mayor for allowing me to continue to be involved as liaison. You had the wisdom of putting my wife on the board, so I get to hear lots of stuff from her, which is really good, keeps me informed. So just keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jane, thank you to volunteers and staff. I know the transportation project, how good it is. I take my mother monthly to have shots in her eye at the main eye care, and I've seen the cars coming in and out with the age-friendly bumper on it. So I've seen them doing their job. But my question is, 2 years ago, roughly, I think it was, in coordination with Saco Main Street, we had put together the Saco Cycles program. You were able to get the grant funding. At that time, Director Biggs was able to help with volunteerism. My understanding is now that you have taken that solely over, or?
When Jen Day was the executive director, she asked not that Saco Main Street not be involved in it. She didn't feel it fit their mission. So we did start the program last year, and we're going to continue the program, but Saco Main Street is not involved.
How much of an impact is that going to be?
Well, we didn't obviously budget for, for that. We didn't really expect that we would be the sole organization. So, yeah, we definitely, that's all part of the operating costs, for sure.
Yep, okay.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much. Up next, we're going to hear from Biddeford Saco Old Orchard Beach Transit, and the executive director for that organization is Chad Hyde. Welcome.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Doyle, Administrator Canrath. I'm just trying to get this up on the screen. Oops. I think I have it.
Oh, it doesn't have a link.
Hang with me.
Why don't we take a 5-minute recess, and we'll have IT come out and give you a hand and give everybody an opportunity to stretch their legs.
There you go. Thank you.
So we'll take
Thank
a
you.
5-minute recess. Okay, coming back, we went a little bit over there, so I just want to get us back on track. So, Executive Director Hyde, welcome.
Yeah, thank you again, Mayor Doyle, for that opportunity to get my technology well ordered. This is just a brief slideshow here to work through our municipal request this year. I will first introduce the request by noting that we are not looking for any additional increase from last year's municipal contribution of $250,000 from each of Biddeford, Saco, and Old Orchard Beach. For those who saw this last year, you'll recall that we called out a kind of a linear trend over time. The last year, we increased 25% from $200,000 to $250,000, which is the blue bar second from the red box on the left-hand side. The request for this year, fiscal year 24 for us, is a flat line, $250,000. The yellow bar itself represents the trend from the previous year, and I call this out because it is important to identify the trends that have occurred over the last 15 years, which really speak to either a flat request of 0%, one instance of an actual decrease in 2016, but usually what occurs after the flat increase is something that is fairly drastic percentage-wise, whether it's 15, 20, 25, 30, and even 45% in some instance. What we're requesting this year is a flat funding request of $250,000, but also projecting a 3-year, 2-out-year increase of both 12 and 12.5% over the next 3 years. Certainly, we're only discussing 1 year's projection here, but as we're building our capital and operating plan over the next 3 years, this is the expectation, or I guess the baseline discussion that we would like to have. Ridership history. When you look at the nation, you look at the industry of transit, what occurred in 2020 as a byproduct of the pandemic certainly altered many people's lives, transportation patterns, commute patterns, where people engage the economy, where people choose to recreate and do any number of things. This chart speaks to what occurred and compares to what our benchmark year of 2019 and 20 was before. You'll see the blue line represents month-over-month ridership totals going back to January of 19. We're generally in that benchmark year, we're between 15 and 20,000 rides per month. And then the orange bars represent the summer seasonal trolley, where we saw the high water mark of July 19 of almost 66,000 rides. Over the last 2.5 years, the industry at large has taken a number of different approaches to try to recover ridership. One thing that we've done most recently in an effort to engage riders who previously would have left us or feel uncomfortable with transit is a fare promotion program, which is all the way on the rightmost side, which says March 23, the Fair Deal Promotion. We cut all of our fares by 50% in an effort to generate more ridership. Over the totality of the last 6 to 8 months, we've been comparing ourselves against national and regional benchmarks. Generally, transit operators are operating around 65 to 75% of pre-pandemic ridership. We are right in line with that benchmark, around 65 to 70% per month over month. I'm going to go back there one more time. So, if you're looking at the last year, you'll see that our summer trolley ridership, July of 22, was 58,000, almost the same as the pre-pandemic high. You look at the month over month of our fixed route ridership, you'll note that there is a crest that occurs between May in 2022 and August of 22, where we begin month over month between 10 and 15,000 rides per month. We have some seasonality, which we see over the 3-year trend. As it gets cold and dark, colleges and institutions program less activities, our riderships decrease. But along with the fare promotion program and a number of other activities I have on the future side, we expect that ridership will continue to increase and continue to provide additional service to our riding public and to the general public. And one thing that I really want to speak about transit is, some folks consider it as a social service, as a public service. I much prefer to think of it as a public utility. Many of the other conversations related to walkability, to people who have mobility challenges, to people who need to find a job, have a job, access different services. zoning conversations. There's a number of different pieces and components that go to building up a viable and a city with vitality, and public transit is certainly one of them. So with the three primary municipal contributions, in this slide call out what some of that investment has provided most recently and in the upcoming years. The bullet that is the primary bullet is the funding source, and then the sub-bullet represents what activities, programs, expenses we look to achieve with those. ARPA, American Recovery Plan Act, we received $780,500 for service enhancements, the fare promotion program I just mentioned, as well as a number of capital and infrastructure improvements, bus stops, bus shelters, technology that allows the general public to interact with our transit system to better understand it. For those that are familiar with riding transit in larger cities, real-time arrival signs, predictive destination time arrivals, a number of different technology investments. The 5307 program is a congressionally legislated formula program that allocates funds specifically towards transit. As part of the PACS region, we get a portion of that allocation. We share that pool of funds with GP Metro, South Portland Bus Service, Casco Bay Lines, and NEPRA. This is, in principle, the only program that is intended to fund transit operations. To some of the earlier conversations about the difficulty and challenges associated with funding transit operations, these formula funds are programmed specifically for that. Those funds require a 50% local match, which we are very appreciative for the municipal investment that allows us to leverage those funds and transition us from more of a public service to a public utility. An additional funding source, the LONO, the Low and No Emissions Grant Program, which is intended to fund fleet transitions away from fossil fuels towards vehicles that are both cleaner and in some way, shape, or form more efficient. Maintenance costs, the components, regenerative braking. I can continue with the list. This $3.2 million speaks to funds that BSUB Transit has already been awarded. We have 2 vehicles that are currently in operation. We have another 2 that are intended for delivery in February of '24, and then we have an en route charger system that is intended to be installed at the Saco Transportation Center, as I've presented to all of you in separate meetings. I will also speak to that LONO program in the future, given that there is additional activities, but I'll hold that for the next slide. I call out each of these last 3 as discretionary. So these are funds that we spend considerable hours, both in staff and public collaboration in developing support to ensure that our system is funded and is competitive in the larger national landscape of discretionary funding. The 4th is the U.S. Department of Transportation SMART grant. I do not pretend to remember what that acronym is for. It's something to the effect of investing in technology. I'm not even going to pretend I know the acronym. But the funds, $350,000, require no local match, and it is a demonstration and planning project. We are one of only 9 transit agencies awarded in the nation amongst 59 separate awards of $100 million. We're one of only 4 transit agencies that was funded for the deployment or the development and planning of a smart grid system that will allow us, as we transition to a zero-emission fleet, to minimize the impact on the public utility, either through energy generation and capture at our facility, or some strategy that will allow us to demonstrate viable solutions that can be applied to transit operators of our size, or something that is larger and more scalable. This U.S. DOT SMART Grant program is a 2-phase grant. Phase 1 is for planning and demonstration. Phase 2 is for capital investment. If all goes according to plan over the next 12 to 18 months, we will leverage these resources to develop that plan and then apply to Phase 2, which could be a transformational opportunity for BSUB Transit and the region to really shift the way that we think about transportation in our local space. And lastly, I think this one really resonates and speaks to some of the other presentations tonight. As part of that 5307 program, the PACS region has what we call a 12% set aside for transit enhancements. Basically a little discretionary program that works within the PACS region to allow transit operators to consider potential transit enhancements that are different or more unique than the general operations of our current programs. BSUB Transit applied in the most recent funding cycle for a transit enhancement project for microtransit implementation. Again, not the operating expense associated with it. However, it is 2 vehicles that will be branded and outfit to allow for ADA and general ridership, as well as the software, project management, and marketing to allow a timeline that ideally leads to BSUB Transit rolling out microtransit in 2024. I can't quote exactly when, pending the final award and agreement with PACS, but we are in the hopper for that one. This program, I did not go through all the slides and want to add them here, is intended specifically to add new transit services to a number of areas that I'll call a polygon within Saco and Old Orchard Beach, with select destinations that will allow folks within that polygon in Saco and Old Orchard Beach to access services in other places that generally are aligned with medical and or other important services in the Biddeford and greater BSUB transit area. If our timeline is met, we will likely be the first transit operator in the state of Maine who will have fully deployed general public microtransit. So lastly, ongoing and future efforts. The first, legislative advocacy. I'm very appreciative and thankful that Representative O'Neill, who has left, has sponsored a bill, LD 1559. As a member of the Executive Committee of Maine Transit Association, we have done considerable work to craft this bill and support the crafting of the bill that has 3 or 4 primary objectives. I encourage anybody who's supportive of transportation, including all of those who provided comments this evening for the various topics presented tonight, to consider testimony tomorrow at the Joint Transportation Committee as 1559 will be heard. 1559 focuses on a number of different topics. Mobility, developing planning staff within the Department of Transportation to ensure that transportation plans are advanced. And I guess most importantly, from a transit operator perspective, 2 one-year allocations of $6.8 million for transit operations. Again, this is transformational money potentially, given the limited opportunities for transit operators to access operating funds. And lastly, a one-time $25 million appropriation in transportation capital in the next biennium. Other ongoing efforts, I mentioned it earlier, 2 Low-No applications and awards that BSUB Transit has already received. As part of a larger coordinated regional effort, BSUB Transit has joined Maine DOT in another round of the Low-No grant program to get, if fully awarded, 4 additional battery electric buses, which will include contributions from BSUB Transit, the municipalities, Maine DOT, the state of Maine, and then the federal government. This is a 3-year application. If awarded the full 4 additional buses, BSUB Transit potentially has the opportunity to become a fixed route bus provider that has an entire fleet in operation that is solely zero-emission battery electric. This would be a 3 to 5 year vision, but it is part of the vision of BSUB Transit to continue to lead in the transition from fossil fuels to battery electric zero-emission buses. Some other items, some equally to celebrate, others ongoing challenges. Summer service adjustments. We have a program that we intend to roll out over the next few weeks, our summer trolley season. I'm happy to discuss that at any point if there are any specific questions, as well as a number of potential service enhancements to our fixed route service. For those that ride or those that are familiar, we operate a pulse system from the Saco Transportation Center, which means that all of our bus routes come to this nexus at the same time to allow for coordinated transfers, and then the buses pulse out at every 75 minutes. Based on some studies and based on just general understanding of the appeal of transit, that frequency is not ideal. And so we are intending to shift our route schedule pulse from every 75 minutes to every 60 minutes, which really is a first incremental adjustment, ideally towards some routes or some corridors being served every 30 minutes. Workforce development and recruitment, an ongoing challenge. I was just speaking with some city staff related to maintenance staff recruitment, operator recruitment, CDL recruitment. It's a challenge. You know, the vision to have 30-minute frequencies, 60-minute frequencies, these things are only capable when we have bus operators. And we raised our operator wages by almost 20% in the last fiscal year as a byproduct of the collective bargaining agreement. We have controlled costs, which we thought was prudent and fiscally responsible in the upcoming year of our increase of only 4%. But what we're seeing is that we're lagging as the number of private and public sector CDL employers continue to raise their wages, far exceeding ours. So we recognize that. And so we're taking some different strategies to try to encourage additional recruitment. We're working with Sanford Adult Ed, we're working with the Department of Labor in developing programs that allow folks who otherwise might not consider working in public transit to consider BSUB transit. One such example is what I believe is the only local CDL training program that pays for the entire permitting, training, licensing process, and then also guarantees a job at the completion of that process. Unfortunately, we've only seen 3 or 4 potential candidates. So I use this opportunity as an advertisement for that program, given that we really want to see our services become more frequent and more viable to all potential members. In terms of workforce development, it kind of goes along with the last bullet, safety. New technology, both on board the bus as well as customer technology. We want to ensure that the skills within our workforce meet today's challenges and needs. In addition to that, there is federal legislation that mandates that a portion of our budgets of those discretionary grants is allocated specifically for training programs and workforce development programs. We are looking to leverage potential relationships with YCC or SMCC to engage apprenticeship programs. We're working with our local unions, including the Amalgamated Transit Union 714, to consider regional apprentice programs for both maintenance and operations. But these are challenges that we face on an ongoing basis, and we really need the community to recognize that this working in public transit is a great opportunity. That goes along with my notion of community outreach. This is a space where many people overlook public transit. And so as we hear the different demands of different populations, and we recognize that transit could be something different to many different members within our community, we are investing in our staff time and engaging in statewide mobility conversations. We are looking to work with local partners. We're also ensuring that as a byproduct of our service adjustments and where we do leverage our funds, we will, over the next 3 to 4 months, be engaging communities and individuals who maybe have needs that we're not meeting currently. And ideally, we're able to identify solutions that will then address those needs and or help those understand the limitations of our operation. And lastly, safety. I mentioned earlier transit technology, bus shelters, bus stops. Over the next year, you're really going to hear a lot from BSUB transit staff to ensure that where our bus stops and where our bus shelters and where people who are accessing our transit network, the active transit network, those who are challenged by different mobility requirements, all have safe passage through the community. And we view BSUB Transit as really a conduit and an advocate for those safety enhancements. And with that, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Hyde? Councilor Berman, then Councilor Hatch.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciated your presentation. I really appreciate all the things that public transit does for our region, and your efforts to electrify are really important to me. But I do have a question specifically about your summer trolley service and adjustments. And I think, as you know, that there are a number of folks in my ward who are really trying to engage in economic revitalization of the Camp Ellis area. That includes restaurants and festivals and real efforts at expanding what that area means to our community. And at the same time, we've seen a cut of the trolley service there, which has been not only a real practical blow for the ability of people to get there and to and from Old Orchard Beach and there, and the ability of tourists to come, but also, frankly, a bit of a morale blow as many of us are trying to invest in the area, and we see, BSOB Transit kind of withdraw from the area. And I'm wondering if you can kind of update us on the status of that service and what we can do to restore it.
Yep, absolutely. And I appreciate your description. That's exactly how I observe it. It's a morale issue. The lack of connectivity that BSOB Transit's reduction or elimination of the Camp Ellis trolley has led to for some members within your ward and in the city of Saco at large. We have had repeat conversations with a number of different stakeholders and constituents within your ward. The newer owners of Hewitt's, we've engaged multiple times, and we continue to work with city staff to try to identify either particular events or a limited schedule that will meet many of the needs. Over the next few weeks, you can expect that we will be continuing to engage particular stakeholders within Camp Ellis to find a way that we can leverage our resources to provide some degree of service. And up to date, the conversations that I've had have not coalesced around a single objective or goal, and some of those goals are actually fairly disparate, moving people in different directions. And so I look forward to more conversations. I will, as a BSOB Transit staff, ensure you that we will be reaching out to try to develop a program. But I really look for stakeholders within Camp Ellis to help develop and solidify what the specific request is. We're limited in resource. So is it Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Is it Wednesday through Saturday? Is it evenings? Is it daytime? These are the conversations that we're having right now with the various stakeholders.
Can I just ask a clarifying question there? There's some pretty active groups in Camp Ellis who've been talking quite a bit about this. So am I hearing you say that if a plan is presented, you think BSOB Transit will be supportive and will try and enact some level of service for this summer?
I would clarify by stating that if there was a unified plan or a unified set of goals that BSOB Transit could develop a plan to attend and succeed in delivering, we are prepared to do that, under the assumption that we have the appropriate staffing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle. Just an editorial comment. I also have the pleasure of serving as council liaison to BSOB Transit. I missed a meeting. They nominated me as chair of the Finance Committee. So
Much appreciated.
Yeah, I'm happy to serve. I just want to let the public know and the council know how efficient that organization is being operated, and Chad's had a lot to do with that. I'm very encouraged by his knowledge of transit. I'm very encouraged by his ability to sort of pull that organization together in a very disciplined fashion. I can assure you that our allocation, as well as that of Biddeford and Old Orchard Beach, is being well spent. And I know that what he said this evening, he's very, very much interested in doing the best he can with the resources that he has available to him. So I just want everybody to understand that it's a little complicated, and we just came out of a pandemic. We see some of the statistics moving in a positive direction, and I'm sure that he will do the best he can with the resources he has available. I'm totally amazed that we could be the only transit organization in the state of Maine that could be running on electric buses, a whole fleet. So that's a nice vision to have, and I hope we all get there.
Thank you.
Councilor McPhail.
Thank you. First off, just I would like to say how disappointed I am in the response to the Camp Ellis trolley going down. Not quite the comment I was hoping for. But on that positive note, I am happy to hear about the shelters. That is something for the past few years, looking around, we definitely need to have some covering and/or a shelter system based on especially the more popular routes, not only as a safety, but and I would like to think that it might increase some ridership. I'm sure there are people that can't stand for that amount of time while they are waiting for, or if it's raining or snowing. So I am hoping to see that go sooner than later, kind of be on the top of the list of getting the identified areas and getting some of those shelters up.
Thank you very much. Just on that point, as a follow-up, I view shelters as one of the great advertisers of public transit. You know, just noting that there is infrastructure there makes people consider it. Thank you.
Any further questions? Director Hyde, you had pointed out at the beginning, you talked about going up 12% and 12.5% in the subsequent 2 years of your 3-year plan. And so just doing some quick math, 12% or 12% on 250,000 is roughly 30,000 you're looking to increase next year, and 35 the year after, for a total of 315 when we get to the end of the 3-year plan. Am I right?
That is correct, Mayor Doyle.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll hear from the Assessing Department, and we'll hear from Assessor Kate Kern. Council, in your budget books, it's page 57 on the Assessing Department.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members and Administrator Cainrith. We're a small department with sort of a small budget, so it shouldn't take too long. Okay. So, as I said, we're 3 full-time certified main assessors. And you can call them fun facts or assessing in action. So some things that we put together for this presentation are highlights from July 2021 to date. There have been 272 new builds in Saco. That's residential and commercial. And that's added to our already 8,800 parcels. So it's quite a few. And still growing. We have processed and verified and approved more than 1,635 new exemptions. And of those, 1,100 are the LD 290 Senior Tax Stabilization Program applications. So that's quite a few for the city. And among the rest are homestead exemptions and veterans. So we've also processed 1,230 real estate transfers, including splits and corrections, et cetera. And we have just about 620 active personal property accounts. And we maintain those personal property accounts, which require annual Betty and Better applications. And probably the most interesting fact up here is the median home sale prices, and this is by calendar year. So for 2020, the median home sale price was $339,000. In 2021, it went up to $385,000. And in 2022, it went up to $462,500. And with just the sales that we've processed in 2023 were over 600,000. So the trend is going up, it's climbing. And it's the opinion of Maine realtors and assessors that it's not a bubble, it's here to stay. Prices aren't expected to drop. So that's something that we're going to be preparing for. So our achievements for 2023, as I mentioned, were one of them was the LD 290 Property Tax Stabilization Program for senior citizens. That was an unexpected uptick when that bill passed in terms of staff time to, first of all, get the word out, accept the applications, process them, verify them, and then get back in touch with the people who qualified. So we did a great job processing those, and for the next half year, it's going to be Finance's responsibility to get their part done in terms of freezing the taxes for these people for 2023 rates. So that's coming as well. And so what we've been working on is building a solid assessing department for Saco. With the end of the shared assessing contract that we had with Biddeford, we now, since July, have had our own 3 full-time certified main assessors, and we also have a new mapping vendor. So we hope to have our parcels updated in new maps every year. So coming for 2024 is to prepare for the citywide revaluation. So that will entail seeking out RFPs, reviewing them, picking a vendor, and then hoping to start the field process in the fall of 2023. And you'll see on the next slides that we have $250,000 set aside for that phase. So I think the time has come. We've been talking about it for a few years now, and we're going to get the ball rolling. Another thing that we will do, as I mentioned, is continue to work with the mapping vendor to keep the parcel layer mapping up to date and add additional map enhancements for our website. That's been an ongoing issue for us. We're hoping with the new vendor that we have that we'll be able to make live updates to the parcel maps so that people can go on our website, click on a map, and see a parcel that was just split maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that's the goal, along with other great layers we'll be able to add. So as you can see, our pie chart, contracts is the biggest percentage this year, and that's because the reval money is in there. The next would be our base pay, which is 43%. And so we're really a small overhead department. We do spend a fair amount on travel and training because we have, each assessor has to maintain 16 certified education credits per year. So we go to a lot of workshops, classes, seminars, et cetera, and that's really good for us as assessors because we get to continually learn from other assessors and learn what the legislature is doing and what's coming our way. So really pretty small budget compared to others. So as I said, the biggest expense is going to be for the revaluation. So the initial steps for that are for us to prepare the request for proposal. I was on our assessing listserv today, and there are 3 other communities that are doing the same thing in Maine. So there's lots of vendors out there who are capable, and I think we'll put together a good package and hopefully be able to make it very cost-effective in terms of picking and choosing what we want the vendor to do and then letting us take the data and process it internally rather than have an outside company come in and just do everything. So I'm pretty confident we can save money along the way. So that's really what's going on in assessing. Kind of short and sweet.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Assessor Kern?
Oh, and thank you. That's our team.
City Administrator Kenrath.
Yeah, I just want to take a second to recognize Kate in her first year as our city assessor and also the team she has. We have 2 young, really, I think, up-and-coming individuals who achieved their CMA in record time, very talented individuals. So I just, congratulations to you and your department on some strong work. You have a fantastic team, and we're lucky to have you, so thank you.
Thank you. We do. We're very fortunate, Saco.
Any other questions, comments? Councilor McPhail?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, the 253 that is set aside for the contracts, my first year on council, I remember, is that money already in a separate fund? Are we just moving this money, or is it counting against? Because we had approved prior to the pandemic.
Glynis?
Yeah. Sorry. So that's a great question. We did appropriate funds, making use of unassigned fund balance around the time of the pandemic. I think it was fiscal year 2021 and 2022. Because the reval was not completed at that time, those funds basically returned to the unassigned fund balance with no net impact to the tax base. And so we're reappropriating these funds this year now that we have a strong assessing team in place. And once again, those funds are being offset by use of unassigned fund balance. There's no net impact to the tax base from this $250,000.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll hear from Public Works Department and Director Fox.
May take just a second for the magic device to kick in. I didn't have it back there ahead of time. So, well, lucky you, you get me for 2 presentations in a row, Public Works and then Capital Plan, and Glynis will jump in on that. You've already heard a lot of numbers tonight, and sorry, I'm going to throw some more at you, but I don't know where all those people went. I thought they were here to speak on behalf of Public Works and Assessing, and they disappeared. So, it says it's almost ready. All right, great. All right, so everyone this year has been doing these cool, like, by the numbers slides. So I tried to piece some together for you that sort of have to do with the everyday services that people use. A couple I want to just point out, the 8,800 gallons, that is, so we have a company that comes and picks up municipal food waste or household food waste from 2 drop-off locations. So we have 65-gallon containers, so they just measure the amount by how full they are, and it's an estimate. They don't weigh them. So I presented it to you that way because you have a 65-gallon container at home, and you can kind of picture how much waste that would be. But these are Saco residents that chose to take food waste, store it separately, put it in their car, drive it to drop-off locations to save the city money and do their part to help the environment and help compost. So kudos to those people. I'm not one of them, so I can't say, but I commend those that put this stuff, save it, bring it, and because this program has grown, because that total is growing, we're going to try to offer more drop-off locations. So we have staff working on that right now. We have about 1,000 service calls a year now going through our online work order program, which the city website, Report a Problem, is the best way to get a service, not to tell the Public Works Director when he's in the grocery store or email every staff member in the city you know. Just click on Report a Problem and it goes right to the people who can take care of it the quickest. So Road and Sidewalk incorporates hazards, debris, as well as plowing and paving issues. And then trash and recycling, you can see that follows by, and that's usually mist collection, requests for new carts at new homes, and an assortment of other trash and recycling related issues. We're up over 13,000 transactions at our transfer station. You know, years ago we just went to a system where people pay as they go there. So I just thought you'd like to, for anyone who was involved in that decision, we're up to about 195,000 in revenue, and it's averaging about $15 per paid transaction visit, leaf, yard waste, those type of things aren't in this. So we do get a lot more customers than 13,000, but those are the paid transactions that we have. And in an age of, we have 42 employees in our department. In an age of a lot of people moving around, changing careers, I just wanted to recognize that we do have 11 of our 42 employees have been there for more than 15 years. And we're leaning on those 11 for the institutional knowledge and the history of the city more and more every day. So we're hoping that number grows again. It's dipped a little bit in recent years. Some FY23 achievements. We finished off some Route 1 sidewalk corridor connectivity from Funtown up to Spring Hill and the Millbrook Industrial Park area, and also the KOA campground in that area to get down to those service areas. We also, along the Route 1 corridor, are dealing with a lot of growth, as you've heard from the planning department as well, I'm sure. So we've had some major culvert rehabs that we've had to do up there. We've done a lot of utility expansion, and now we're getting ready for the Department of Transportation is coming in to pave the section of Route 1 from Cascade Road up to the Scarborough line. So there's a lot of work going into getting all of our underground utilities all set before that happens. Jenkins Road, Hillview Ave signalization is underway. The contractor that we've secured is waiting until after school is done to start the work, which is probably great news for anyone who has to get to the Saco Middle School for the rest of the school year. But immediately following that, construction and installation will start. We've continued to do as much as we can to clean up the Goose Fair Brook, which is our concerned waterway that we have to work on and show improvements in the water quality. So we've had retrofits of stormwater systems that the city owns, as well as partnering with private development to have them incorporate above and beyond measures within that area. And we've brought in some significant funding, $600,000 in DOT funds for the Jenkins Road Hillview signalization. We're still managing and implementing rebuilding the Camp Ellis area from the damage in the December storm. We'll see about $180,000 in FEMA funds come back against our costs for that. And we secured a $240,000 MDOT heads-up funding to connect Route 112 sidewalks down to the park and ride on Industrial Park Road, which is a more heavily traveled pedestrian route than it has been in the past, certainly over the last few years. FY24 budget, this is just the budget summary from your budget book. And it's, I want to acknowledge that it's a little deceiving. It almost looks like we avoided or somehow are immune to inflationary issues in all sectors of purchasing materials and goods. We are not. So as flat as it looks, we did have some significant changes, but we also, as part of this year, have moved a lot of our capital expenses, paving, stormwater upgrades, some sidewalk construction, back into the capital plan. Some of that had migrated into operating. Years ago, a well-intended council said, you have to pave every year, we want to acknowledge that, let's just move it into your operating budget. But it really is a capital expense. So we've worked to align with what best practices are, what the audit says you should do. So it's not that those are gone, but those have moved back over into the capital plan. So that sort of hides the fact that some things that are up significantly in our operating would be road salt is up 21% or 38,000 just on a unit cost basis. Not that we're using more road salt, it's just costing us more to buy it. Solid waste, that would be waste collection, curbside, disposal at Eco Main, and our transfer station hauling of different dumpsters and goods is up 123,000 across all of those contracts and services. And vehicle, gas, and diesel, we dodged the inflation that everyone saw in their home heating oil or transportation budgets last year because we were under a 2-year contract. But this year we had to re-up, and those contracts are up 66,000. So considerable, 66% because we spend about 100,000, so 66,000. Just some high-level goals for FY24. We do have to pass a low-impact development ordinance. So that's related to our MS4 permit and stormwater, cleaning up our stormwater. So there'll be new scrutiny on projects coming down from the federal and state level that we need to introduce into our local ordinances that have to do with developable area, how you clean up and store and redistribute your stormwater across your site as you develop it. So we'll be working through that with the planning department, and you'll see that in new ordinances or revised ordinances. Certainly going to be a staff focus here. We've gone through and are going through and bringing a lot of new managers on board in some very key roles. So a chance to really, sort of form a new team, really embrace some of the comprehensive plan and planning work that's been done to, reinvigorate our staff and just make sure we're carrying out the mission that you've all set forth as best we can. So I'm looking forward to that staff focus over the next year. Aligning services with the comprehensive plan. Can our day-to-day services be better aligned with the comp plan? It's not really an exercise we've done it on very high levels, we've done it a little bit, but can we really embrace that and really deliver even more to the community for what they really want to see produced? And a traffic infrastructure plan. That's not just traffic. I think Emily Cole Prescott, the planner, spoke to you as well about that. That's looking at very comprehensively at where we need to grow our transportation to accommodate growth, but also for vehicles, but also multimodal transit, bike lanes, pedestrian connectivity, and how can we incorporate that into shape future impact fees and also project priority selection. So that's going to be a big endeavor that will incur, that is covered in this year's capital plan to get a consultant on board to help with those efforts. So that is all I've got on the operating side. Basically we're here to make sure that travel and enjoyment of public spaces is convenient. And ideally, you don't think of public works. You go through your day and your trash is picked up and you enjoy the public and we're out of sight, out of mind. But if you do think of us, please go on the city website and click Report a Problem. You will see amazingly fast results, usually sometimes within hours. So that is the best way to get in touch with us. And that's all I have on the Public Works operator.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Fox on the Public Works budget? Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Director Fox. I appreciated the presentation. As you may know, about a week and a half ago, a group of citizens arranged something called the Street Project, which is a film they streamed over in Biddeford. Our BPAC had a lot to do with that. And I found the film really striking. And it highlights a number of cities and towns of various sizes that have moved away from kind of an automobile-centric development and really tried to encourage active transit in their cities. Active transit being defined as transit that's human-powered. So that's pedestrians, that's bicycles, that's other ways like that. And just some of the statistics that I found to be really impressive is you can move almost 3 times as many people using bike lanes as you can by cars during periods of traffic, just due to the increased density on the bike lanes. The safety and livability scores of cities just start to skyrocket and go way up. I found it to be really inspirational. I'm also, and this really isn't a comment to you, maybe more to just our planning and the council, but I worry that a lot of our development is really focused around the automobile, and we put new growth in areas that just simply aren't walkable or bikeable to our downtown and service areas. And I'm afraid I haven't seen that pattern change, although we've talked about infill. It hasn't really happened. So one of the things I've done is I've asked our city administrator and budget director, Salas, to create a budget amendment that would start setting aside about $500,000 a year in an account that I hope would roll over to be used to really encourage active transit projects. It could be used as seed money or matching money or maybe save up someday for a Ferry Road sidewalk, although not limited to that. So we really put a kickstart on the need for active transit in our city. As we've seen from some of these initiatives, creating sidewalks, creating bike paths is a hugely capital-intensive project. Given the amount of debt we're taking on for the sewer and the schools, I don't think it's a time to bond for major initiatives like this. I think saving and paying as we go is the way forward. So I expect there'll be some discussion about that next week as we pass our budget.
Thank you. There is a lot underway with those programs. I mean, I can say 10 years ago, projects weren't planned around bike lanes and pedestrian mobility. They were all about either the condition of a roadway or moving more vehicles. And I will say on a regional basis, with our participation at PAX and GP COG, they've put new policies in place, and we've mirrored that and done that locally. So every project is looked at. Now, granted, we don't touch a road for more than every 12 to 20 years. So it might not unfold on the road as quickly as people would like to see, but I can tell you there's been a monumental shift in those discussions. So I think your suggestion is timely, and those things are underway to land that infrastructure in the right place.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the work and support that Public Works has done for that. We've painted our first bike lanes in Saco recently. There's been a lot of effort on sidewalks. It's been noted and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further questions, discussion? Moving on to capital plan, or capital program.
All right. So I'll get started on capital plan. The capital plan of today is not the capital plan of a decade ago. We are investing a lot of time, money, resources in our infrastructure, and that is greatly appreciated, I will tell you, from city staff and the professionals that do this and look at these things on a daily basis. To have the funding to make real difference, it's a lot different than 10 years ago. So one thing we've done, all the departments have participated. Public Works and Finance have worked really closely on this. What you see here is sort of the boxes up above is kind of a new dashboard within Munis, our accounting software. We've never really taken advantage or harnessed the power of our financial software from a capital planning standpoint. So it takes a lot of time and resources to do that, and we're investing that time. So you can see here, we're up to, this number is constantly changing, especially in today's inflation. So some of these numbers could change even in the next year. But you're looking at over $328 million in replacement cost of our city assets, with over 1,500 significant assets or asset categories being tracked. So we have vehicles. I won't get into you can see sort of what falls into each bucket down below, but $13.6 million in city fleet, $116 million in utilities, and that does not include sewer. That hasn't been incorporated because it's sort of on the enterprise fund side. So what you're seeing here is just drainage, traffic signals, streetlights. Over $102 million in roadway infrastructure, $4.8 million in machineries and equipment, and that also includes our IT units and infrastructure. $9.5 million in mostly what you would consider parks and recreation. We call it grounds, but it's mostly the parks and recreation domain. And $67 million in city facilities. So when you start looking at the capital plan, you see big numbers. If you take this total of $328 million and you just in your head divide it by some assets will only last you 12 to 15 years in vehicles. Buildings or a lot of facility, you're looking at maybe 50 to 75. And then on some of the utility lines, you might be even more in the hundreds. So not all assets are created equal, but it just sort of helps. I think this dashboard, and the more we refine it, helps the decision makers say, okay, I get it. We're spending this much in facilities, and if you don't do that every year, you're just creating a sort of balloon effect. And I think Saco's way ahead of that compared to some other communities, that we don't have this cliff that we're heading towards. We're taking care of our assets. We're funding the replacements at a timely manner. So we also have a software package that's really helping us. This ClearGov helps us actually, especially piecing together multiple funding mechanisms for individual projects. So most projects we do now, almost all of them have a grant component. They have general fund, they have TIF expenditures. This software package really helps us capture it and not lose it anywhere along the way in the project planning. So FY 2024, everything that's flowing through that and is sort of capital related is $8.6 million, and you can see across facility, ground, utility, right-of-way, and vehicles and equipment, some of the major projects that we have planned. I won't go through them individually. Happy to revisit any project you want to discuss tonight, but there's over 100 line items and requests in the capital plan. So I will leave it to you if there's ones that you want me to dig further on. Funding by source. Over the years, we've had some, back in 2012 to 2014, we really started putting together asset management plans and setting goals for each of these different funding categories. And I will say, right now, in the 5-year capital plan, you're looking at grants are really making up. I think back originally, we might have thought, geez, if we could cover 5, 10, 15% of our expenditures with grants, that'd be great. Well, we're up to 28%. Some of that certainly, ARPA plays a big role in that on the front end of the capital plan, but we're finding new and better ways to utilize grant funds and non-general funds year in and year out. So that's our funding profile spread out across the 5 years. And with that, I will let Glennis get into all the fancy charts and money that I don't understand and that she does.
Thank you, Pat. And I did want to echo what Director Fox mentioned, which is he and I have worked very closely together over the last year to try and build out better reporting, better tools to better understand our capital assets. Capital asset tracking and reporting is a significant lift. It's a challenge for organizations, not only in the government sector, but in the private sector. And I think we've arrived at a really good place in terms of our planning. So I'm going to be talking about debt and financing, and then, of course, open it up to questions about either the debt piece or the capital planning. Every year, I present the 5-year bond costs broken out by our active debt issuances. This graphic is also contained in the capital planning section of your budget book. The larger bar for each year is your principal payment. The smaller bar represents interest payments. Of note is the MDOT bridge note, which was related to the Stackpole Bridge rebuild some years ago. That will be coming offline after 2026. And there is a significant reduction in the annual principal payments on the 2016 bond refunding, which was primarily for, originally that was a 2010 roads issuance that was refunded in 2016. Those principal payments are going to be dropping off. So we do see a nice drop off on our principal debt costs in 2027. This next chart is similar in that the larger bar represents principal payments, the shorter bar for each year represents interest payments. However, this chart breaks out your allocation of debt payments between the general fund and our TIF funds. As Director Desjardins presented a couple of nights ago, we do enjoy significant benefits in making use of TIF funds where qualified for debt service because it preserves our EPS subsidy formula primarily on the school side, as well as some other benefits on state revenue sharing and York County taxes. So where possible, it is good to make use of TIF funds, and we are at this point now funding a little over 25% of our principal payments on an annual basis out of our TIF districts. Another question I get fairly regularly is, when do the principal payments fall off? When's the next big cliff, if you will, on our principal payments? Over the next 5 years, there is a gradual decrease in principal payments year over year, but the most significant drop-off we're looking towards comes in 2029, when most of that 2016 roads refunding comes offline. At that point, principal payments pretty steady through the next 10 years until 2040, when the 2018 infrastructure and 2018 sewer extension bonds come offline, and then the year after in 2041, the fire station comes offline. And then going out the rest of the year through 2048, that's your principal payments on the Public Works facility. So I'm going to ask Directors Fox assistance here in handing out. We did have to make a revision to the capital financing section of the budget book. I did discover that page 49, the asset replacement schedule for the next 5 years, contains some duplicative values on the replacement. So there is a revised sheet that's being handed out for your printed budget books. The budget book online has been revised. The capital asset replacement schedule is correct. The replacement values are what was revised. The City of Saco makes use of capital financing in funding the cost of its largely wheeled vehicle, but also equipment purchases. This levels out the cost of that financing over time, so no one equipment purchase has a significant impact on the tax base. This also creates stability over time, as generally we do 5-year financing on all of our vehicle and equipment purchases. Those financings come offline as new financing comes online, creating a very steady cost to the general fund over time. And in fact, if you look at the blue bars on the left-hand side in this slide, that represents the general fund obligation related to our capital financing. It moves a little bit from year to year, but overall very steady and even coming down over the 5 years. The green bar represents primarily ambulance service fees, which are used to finance the purchase of new ambulances, as well as the related ambulance equipment. TIF funds are in orange. We make less use of TIF funds in funding our wheeled equipment. This is because not all of the TIF development districts actually contain equipment purchases as a qualified development project. So we're limited really with only 1 or 2 TIF districts to be able to even fund those financings. The first 2 years, 24 and 25, are more significant in terms of the TIF contribution because we are reserving $100,000 annually towards the purchase of a new fire truck. That purchase is anticipated to occur in 2026, I believe, and those reserved funds will be put towards the principal payment on that financing. On the right-hand side is that corrected asset replacement schedule. So year 1, you'll see that we're up a little bit over $2 million in asset replacement value. That's leveled off when you compare to the capital financing costs on the left-hand side, again, because of our 5-year replacement schedule, and also because year 1 of this 5-year plan contains the replacement of a fire truck. That fire truck replacement will be on a 10-year financing versus 5-year financing, which reduces the upfront impact to the general fund. So that's everything that I had in regards to debt and financing. That is the conclusion of our capital presentation as well. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the capital plan? Councilor Berman, then Councilor Hatch. Councilor Berman.
Yeah, actually, back to Director Fox, I think. For the benefit of the Ferry Road residents watching from home, could you talk about the 2024 large project planned Ferry Road infrastructure right away and what that means?
Yeah, so as we were, of course, by the time you see this, it's a few months after we're putting a lot of the numbers together. So as we were putting this capital plan budget together, knowing that there was, we had put forward, this council had put forward $100,000 to study and do engineering plans for what it would take to put a sidewalk down Ferry Road. It was determined that regardless of whether we can or do move forward with a $3 million project or something in that ballpark for a full road and sidewalk and drainage system, there were some identified needs with the major culvert that crosses as you get down near Seaside Ave. So we could move forward some isolated components to prepare ahead of putting a sidewalk down there that would maybe lessen a future sidewalk sort of designated project. So the $140,000 can't replace the culvert, but it was a number we kind of had available within infrastructure, so we just allocated it to that corridor because we have full engineering plans to move something forward through either final design or permitting through Army Corps and DEP related to most likely the culvert as the major component, but that has to be wider to accommodate a sidewalk anyway. So it was just thought to address some of our immediate needs in preparation for a future project.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle. I'm looking at the chart on page 80 of your presentation, which shows the bond principal payments over time. So that does not, correct me if I'm wrong, that does not reflect the potential impact of the wastewater treatment bond, nor would it, because we don't know what the bond will be for the school. So those two items are still on the radar screen, but not quite embedded in this analysis. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the enterprise fund bond payment is being funded from a couple of different funding mechanisms. That's within the TIF district primarily. And what we've decided to do with the enterprise bond funding is we are reserving funds up front over the next couple of years as the sewer enterprise fees rise. However, the debt schedules that I present in the capital planning section are only for active debt, and that the enterprise treatment plan bond has not been fully issued yet, so it's not considered active debt. The same would be with the school. We understand the school will be issuing debt. Those debt payments would be out of the school special revenue fund as reported in our financial statements rather than the city general fund.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. And then the only other comment, financing costs are moving up, so, you know, the market, I don't know how that's going to affect our future budgeting, but there may be a need to consider higher levels of interest expense, depending on what the markets do. So, and I know you can't predict that, so.
Yes, I would have to go back and look through my notes. I had, over the last couple of years, done 3%. I believe I upped it to 5%, but even that might be a little bit low as compared to what the market is driving. We'll have to see with our issuance this coming summer where we're coming in at.
It's more realistic than 3%, so at least you made an effort to build that in, so thank you.
Any further discussion, comments, questions? Seeing nothing, thank you very much. Welcome. And that concludes the budget presentations for this evening, and that brings us to item 10, the administrative update. City Administrator Kainrath.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Upcoming agenda preview next Monday, 5/1, we'll have the budget public hearing and a time for council discussion and deliberation. And on 5/8, we'll have the final adoption of the FY24 budget. An update on the Army Corps of Engineers meeting that had to be postponed until May 15th due to an illness on their side, but they will be back on May 15th at 10 a.m. We'll have a meeting here, then we'll go down to Camp Bellis to do a little site visit. Anyone that wants to join us, just let me or Tori know so we can add you to the email list. Affordable Housing Task Force, we've had a couple good meetings. Hope to provide a more full update and in-depth update at our first workshop meeting in May. We're currently going through a list, though, of city-owned properties as well as foreclosed and or blighted properties that may offer future possibilities for future locations for projects. We also anticipate presenting at least one concept for consideration to begin addressing the issue of affordable workforce housing here in Saco. Camp Ellis Harbor Festival. So our Economic Development Department, as well as other city staff, has begun planning for a community festival to be held in Camp Ellis. The date, save the date, is August 13th. We also have a committee of volunteer residents that are highly involved with all the planning stages so far. So we hope this is going to be an ongoing annual event. There used to be an event many years ago. I think our harbor master could tell you some of those days. This is going to be a more sedate and well-behaved event, though, than some of those things, right? Okay. This should be a great way to, again, highlight the Camp Ellis area and bring some new energy to the neighborhood as well as the other improvements we're doing there. So pretty excited about that, and we'll continue to update you as things progress. My next city administrator's open office hours will be May 2nd, 3:30 to 5 here on the second floor of City Hall. Of course, all residents and business owners are welcome and encouraged to attend. And lastly, just one more plug, we do need some lifeguards. So please see Ryan Summer at Parks and Rec if you're interested and being a lifeguard. I will also note that back in the day, I did receive my lifeguard certification, so if this council is interested in me taking a little leave of absence to go help guard for June, July, and August, I'll be happy to do that. We can talk after the meeting. I'm joking, but not really, so let me know.
Thank you. Any questions for City Administrator Canrath? Seeing no questions, moving on to item 11, council discussion and comment. Any council discussion and comment this evening? Moving on to item 12, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Hatch, is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Berman, any discussion? Roll call to adjourn. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to adjourn at 9:18 PM. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.